The goal is to bring you your next favorite band.
Sweet, that intro is my new favorite band. That's phenomenal. I'm so excited to be on.
Yeah. I heard a rumor that you might be able to play that song live today.
You heard correctly. Yes.
Excellent. So,
good enough for Robin.
I don't know when I rock out here on your next favorite band and show.
and listen, it's going to be everybody's favorite band.
Phil, you weren't supposed to make me get all... God almighty,
But this
Phil.
is why we do it.
Like, seriously. I gotta gather myself. All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Welcome to your next favorite band. That's both the show title and our promise to you. We here at Stereophilia Studio are tireless in our pursuit of finding incredible, genre-defiant artists who are either a hot up-and-coming band or a group that has been delivering for years but have flown under the radar. Tonight we have the voice and songwriting behind the Caulfields, Ike, John, and Brittany, and now on his own solo music, Philly music legend John Kim Faye. Each month, we will bring you live streams, audio podcasts, and perhaps even a live concert where you can listen to the stories and hear the music of artists personally curated by us based on what we feel will be worthy of your time. Be sure to subscribe and tune in to each episode because the possibilities are endless and you never know who will be
Your next favorite band.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I am your host, Philip Reese, and you are listening to Your Next Favorite Band. And we've got a great one for you tonight. We have kind of a fun setting for this one. Tonight's guest is John Faye, or John Kim Faye, depending on how you prefer to approach it. But an incredible storied career and only still coming out with some of his best music ever as we speak. He, in addition to putting on the amazing music that he releases, he also puts on a podcast, and it's called Talking at the Diner. And so what he does, his shtick, his thing, is to meet with a working musician at a local diner in Philly, or in the Philly area. I think it's often the same one, but not always the same exact one. And he sets up a microphone and records a conversation while they eat diner food, including apparently what is some delicious rice pudding. So I'm hoping to get some of that myself one of these times. But what I figured was, why not meet him where he wants to be met and meet him in a diner? So we were able to connect halfway between the Lehigh Valley and Philadelphia at a diner in the Conshohocken area, and it was fun. It was great. It's John is a fantastic storyteller, a wonderful musician, and like I said, has this incredible career that spans from some really significant hits that were released in the 90s as a younger band, more of that kind of grungy 90s sound, and then finds another iteration after iteration after iteration, just his constant persistence and commitment to this art and excellence and talent that he has. And it's just really, really an amazing opportunity to sit with him, have him tell those stories, and we share some of his music along the way. So we would love to kind of get into it because it is a little bit of a longer interview just because he's got so many great stories. So we're going to get right to it. But first we'll hear from our sponsor, BetterHelp, and then we'll share some of his more current music, and then we'll get into the interview. Hey, music lovers. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to tell you about our sponsor, BetterHelp. More and more mental health topics of depression, anxiety, addiction, and more are coming up in our interviews with artists and musicians who are brave enough to share them and the music that came out of the journey. Those songs may even help us feel a little bit less alone as we work through the same struggles, but at the end of the day, we need more than just a great song. We need therapy, and that's where BetterHelp can assist. BetterHelp connects you with a therapist who can help you find your path. Instead of being stuck in the endless loop of questioning yourself, you can talk through questions, concerns, with someone who's trained to help you find real answers. As you know, our Listen to the Dissonance shows help to create a safe space for vulnerable conversations, but not everywhere can feel that way. Since BetterHelp is accessed via their app, you can explore your options and conduct your sessions in the comfort of your own home or wherever you feel is best for you. After you download the app, you'll get started by filling out a questionnaire and get matched with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. And if that's not feeling right, you can easily switch to a different therapist at any time at no extra cost. They carefully make sure the therapists on the platform are well qualified and their customer support team is there to help you with any questions. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform that you can trust. We at Your Next Favorite Band believe in breaking the stigma around mental health, and going to therapy is a sign of strength, not weakness. And with BetterHelp, it's easier than ever to take that first step towards feeling better. Click the link here or go to betterhelp.com/nextfaveband and you'll get 10% off your first month of therapy. That's betterhelp.com/nextfaveband. It's okay to ask for help. Contact BetterHelp today. So let's get into some music here from John Kim Faye. The more recent release of his is called The Long Game, and this is one of the most incredible tracks off of that album called Sell Your Soul as an NFT. And it's a very clever and funny video as well, so enjoy some John Faye.
Sell your soul as an NFT.
With 11 full-length studio albums, 2 live albums, a B-sides record, 3 EPs, 2 DVDs, and a slew of singles to his credit, John Faye has amassed an impressive musical resume. Through his career of 30-plus years, Faye has seen the music business from every conceivable angle. As both a signed and independent artist, and as one of the only mixed-race Asian-American frontmen to sign a major label recording contract in the 90s heyday of alternative rock, Faye released 2 albums on A&M Records with his band The Caulfields, landed a publishing deal with Warner Chappell, and toured nationally and internationally. John also has published a book, The Yin and the Yang of It All, and produces a podcast called Talking at the Diner. We'll bring this back up and then we'll get into the interview.
Wondering aloud what you ever saw in me. Wishing you could sell your soul as an NFT. Get heavy rotation in the leather underground or alternative nation, begging for a phone and a little validation on the late night satellite radio station.
I want this to be part of the
We are talking at the diner
Right.
with John Kim Faye. For those who know, you know what we're talking about there. We'll get into that in a few, but thank you so much, John Kim Faye, joining us here. Philly music legend, I would have to say.
If I wasn't, would I be able to have this large of a bowl of chicken noodle soup at the diner?
That's exactly right. But truly, I mean, like, the career spans many decades. It spanned in a great way different iterations of music.
How many decades before it becomes not in a great way is my question.
Actually, I guess it just gets better.
It gets
over
better
time.
with
It's like wine
as you add more. I think I've been saying my 3-decade career for a really long time now, and it's inching into. I mean, it's definitely covered 4.
Yes,
it's spanned 4.
Right.
But it's been really an interesting trip.
Right.
Just going from it, like 1995 was 30 years ago, and it feels like yesterday.
It totally does.
Yeah. I mean, it's you see all these memes.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe that.
Right.
1992 was that many years ago or whatever.
Yeah, and when they always talk about like the distance between that year and today is the same as that year to like something that puts you into like the 50s.
Right, exactly. So it's pretty insane.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think like Philly is an incredible music town, and I don't know that it ever gets the credit that it deserves. Maybe more now than before.
Yeah.
But like you talk of music towns, people immediately jump to Nashville, Austin, even LA and New York. But Philly has such a storied history, which you are a part of.
Yeah,
like you are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big Philly music scene fan.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of what it is currently.
Yeah.
I think it's probably as good as it's ever been in so many ways.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many great artists that are not even really getting their flowers yet, but they're bubbling under.
Yes.
And it just the talent, the scope of talent never seems to really end.
No. In fact, that's like even where other fan of podcast of music. Mm-hmm. Dan Drago has an entire podcast, 25 O'Clock, that's simply dedicated to the Philly music scene. Right. And he did 10 years and 300 episodes.
He pumps them out.
That's right. And never ran out. Barely doubled anybody.
No.
And
I think I was doubled, and there's a couple other people.
Yeah, not many. And usually because there was a new iteration of that was making it a completely new conversation.
Yeah.
And so that just speaks to the music scene, like you said. We listened to, coming into the interview here, pretty much brand new music, not yesterday, but pretty new. We were listening there to "Sell Your Soul" for an NFT, like an
As
NFT.
an NFT.
Yeah,
yes.
And I mean, still has that like. Again, my favorite part is avoiding genre, but like it has these like rock, pop, power, like just really fun music to listen to.
I'm glad you like it. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it was very fun to record that song because it very much felt like I was in the spirit of my 30 years ago self,
Yeah.
And I think my musical palette has expanded to the point where I'm covering a lot more territory than if I were still in one of those bands that I had been in.
Right.
Because it's really just all me filling in those colors as opposed to like the not the constraints, but the structure of like a typical like 4-piece rock band.
Right.
So to kind of get back into just doing like a loud guitar song was really pretty fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I think too, like the fun part about it is it's off of an album called The Long Game. And you get yourself ready to listen to a John Faye album, and you're ready for these, power chords and all that kind of stuff. And the opening track is this ballad, I guess.
No drums.
Yeah. Nice and you're waiting for it to maybe come hit you over the head, and it doesn't do it, which I thought was a brilliant way to start it.
I appreciate that.
Because you really catch
there was
the person's got to pay attention.
A lot of internal debate and debate with, I kind of ran the idea past several musician friends, and it was very counterintuitive to all of them. They were like, I think that's more like the end of the album kind of song. I'm like, yeah, but that's the title.
Yeah. No, I like it.
I'm very happy with how that turned out because then "Sell Your Soul" as an NFT comes in right after that, and then it's like
now you know.
Now
you're where
you're in there.
you expect it to be.
Yeah.
But now I think you're listening in a completely different way.
Yeah.
Was this an ode to, was it the long game with music, or was it to life? Like, do you have or is it multiple different things?
Yeah, I think it's multi-layered,
Yeah.
but really it's the long game is how I'm looking at my life.
Right.
You know, when you've had so many iterations and I guess what you could call, you know, eras.
Sure.
Shout out Taylor Swift. You know, it's.
So this is John's version.
Yeah, it's my version.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, the song itself is a very kind of specific relationship-oriented lyric, but when you put it in the context of your whole life and your whole career,
Right.
and just the phases of what you've been doing, it seemed like a very apt title to me.
Because obviously the first listen, the natural thought is it's for a partner in life or something like that.
Yeah.
But then as I started listening to it, I was wondering if it was about kind of music in general, where it was like, as I was preparing for this interview, and you're looking at these different moments in time where a rise and fall and a rise and fall, and I could just see you having this love affair with being a musician.
That's a really astute point, because I think almost every song I've ever written that could be construed through the lens of like, oh, this is a a relationship type of song, it always seems to also work for my relationship with art and creativity. And as my actual life has panned out, I am pretty much more married to my art than involved in any other kind of like personal relationship.
Sure.
So it makes total sense.
Yeah. And like I said, to kind of tie a bow on that, I do think it had you as a listener paying more attention to it, rather than just throwing it on and maybe going around. When the first track was like that, you were like, oh, I think I better listen to this.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's a conscious goal, but I think the way that the album, The Long Game, kind of like takes you through song number 1 through song number 10 is like you're kind of on this little trip that takes a lot of different turns.
Yes, absolutely. And like I said, we'll get into more of that. But one thing we always love to do on this show is take it back to the beginning. And so this is an element that I think is super interesting on many levels, obviously. Born in Delaware.
Born in Philly.
Grew up in Delaware.
Grew up in Delaware.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then this is what I think is interesting, because it's topics that we never want to shy away from on this show, is your parents were, your mother was Korean and your father was Irish.
Correct.
But couldn't get married because there were still laws preventing interracial marriage.
Well, yes. So they didn't get married till the year after I was born. I didn't discover this until way, way later.
Got it.
I got like a little dossier of my father's paperwork and different documents from his life. And I was like, oh, look at their marriage certificate. You're doing the math in your head, and you're like, oh, that's wow, okay. So then you do a little more research, and you come to realize that they had these things called anti-miscegenation laws.
And I like, so in topics of this, when I bring it up with some other people, I sometimes say, I'm like, okay, and guess what year that was? And they're always paying like 1800 something, 1910.
It wasn't that long ago.
No,
that's the thing that's so fucked up
like
about this.
Exactly
is that
right.
It was not that long ago.
Right. And that's the danger of today, is like it could very easily slide back in. Like people don't realize how dangerous of a time it is, because it was that bad yesterday, in essence. But I think you can't ignore the facts and the reality of that was there for your parents to prevent them from becoming married.
Yeah.
Even though they were.
Well, it was just on the cusp of like a certain change in society. So Loving versus Virginia was the Supreme Court case that like struck down all those laws.
Right.
And to be fair, most of the country didn't have those laws anymore. It was just ass backward Delaware that did.
But it was there.
That's where they live.
Right. Yeah. And I think another element, and let's bring in the show that you have coming up in May, because I think there's another aspect to the Asian hate of our country that was a part of your life growing up that has also led to the need to really emphasize being an Asian frontman or frontwoman for that matter, like where there needs to be more of a spotlight and more of an effort to kind of point that out, that it can then hopefully break those barriers and biases.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons that Judah Kim and I guess, conceived of this show is that we very much felt like we were islands, coming up in bands and that kind of thing. And, I think that the more that I've gone out and seen shows in the Philly scene, like there actually are a lot more Asian American performers than even I knew of like a year ago.
Sure.
But they're very, very underground. And, we're just trying to create a little awareness.
Yeah.
I mean, things are definitely so much different today than, for example, when I was a teenager.
Sure.
In terms of representation, in terms of Asian artistic people being part of the culture.
Yep.
But I will say that that's much more prevalent in film and TV than it is in rock and roll.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we're just trying to shine a little light on our little corner of things.
Yeah.
And listen, neither one of us leads with that card all the time.
No.
We're just out there doing our thing.
Correct.
But I think that it is important to, when you can, just create a little more awareness that this stuff exists. We want to show actual Asian people that this can be a life.
Yep.
Because, I mean, there's a lot of cultural stuff that we've encountered in our lives where...
Yeah, we got into that with Judah a lot, where there's this, stigma of definition of success and whatnot, and a lot of family pressure.
And, you have to look at both sides of that. A lot of these people worked very hard to immigrate to this country.
Sure.
And, I can certainly see some of them saying, I didn't come all the way over here for you to play guitar and yell into a microphone.
Right.
But I do think that we have both led very, very satisfying lives as creative people.
Yeah.
And I think that we have contributed to our music community. And I think that us being that representation and all the other people that were involved with the show last year and this year and hopefully beyond are also going to be part of that story.
Yeah, and I think too, until you're done with, first female this, first Asian American that, first person of color, whatever, we're still breaking some of those firsts. So until you do, or until it's more equitable, more bias is erased, where people can just be the best this or the whatever, you have to be able to because there's this celebration side of, oh my gosh, let's celebrate this, but then there's the reminder that the reason why you're celebrating is because there's a lot of ugliness to what got that.
There's a lot of ugliness, and there's also a lot of like I was mentioning, there's just not as many of us doing it.
Right. And then that point too, of the person who's 5, 6, 7 years old, if they don't see it, they don't think they can become it, but if they do see it, then if that's what their dreams are filled with, then they can pursue that, and that's the beauty of it.
That is definitely true.
So you're helping tomorrow be better, and then hopefully a little bit today.
One can hope.
So tell us a little bit of the details about that. It's in May.
Sure. It's May 17th. It's a WXPN welcomes event at Milkboy in Philly.
Great venue.
So it's going to be Judah Kim and his band.
Right.
Kikashima, which is an incredible three-piece, I would say like soulful funk rock
Awesome.
kind of combo.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Female-led. So their lead singer is half Japanese, half Mexican. Actually had a great conversation with the both of them at a Talking at the Diner episode that is yet to be released. But
Okay. And then you're bringing back Ike. For
I
this.
am. So I am reuniting Ike, which for those who don't know, was my band that was from in the basically the early 2000s.
Sure. Kind of almost the middle portion of your story, or
I would
early
say
band.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the band that formed after the Caulfields.
Yeah.
And really excited about that because we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of a record called In Real Life,
Very cool.
which has, I mean, if you're from Philly, you know the song Into Philadelphia.
Into Philadelphia is a huge anthem.
And has been very
And like you said, it was a prior iteration of who you were as a person and a musician, so you have to almost get back into those shoes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that particular period of my life was pretty complex because I was a new parent or relatively new parent at that time, but my marriage was also kind of not going great. So the pain and the yearning in some of those tunes is pretty visceral.
Didn't I hear? So the Into Philadelphia track was almost written for your son because he wouldn't go to sleep, and you
Well, not almost.
Right.
It's inspired by that.
because again, it was almost sounding like it was a love song, but it ended up being to a child, not to a
Right.
which I thought was
Which
awesome.
I always used to say when we would play the song, like when I say "baby" in this song, it's an
Actual baby.
Yeah.
That's such a fun story. Yeah. But yeah, so now let's get into the music. So you're high schoolish, I guess you're pulling things together. The band is called No Excuse?
Oh, in high school?
Yes.
Started out as the Suburban Lizards. One gig. Didn't go well.
Didn't
Morphed into No Excuse.
And then into
The
Beat Clinic.
Yes. So that was actually the first serious band I was in.
Sure.
And this did contain a couple of the people who I were in the absolute first iterations of everything.
Yeah.
So everyone was kind of taking it seriously. We went from high school to college. We all decided to go to the same college.
And you were opening for, in high school, I guess it was, you were opening for like things like the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Well, that was college.
That was college,
That was
okay.
the Beat Clinic
Got it.
once we got to University of Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
There was a place in Newark called the State Theater, which is no longer there because it got burned down. Which, funny story now, so many years later, but there was a question that it might have been like a quasi-arson situation. And I'm pretty sure I know the guy that did it. But
we won't say it here.
It's all water under the bridge.
Water
now.
into the theater.
Right. Fire into the crowded theater.
Amazing. So yeah, so now you're the Beat Clinic competes at a battle of the bands.
Yeah.
Wins the Philadelphia section, comes in second overall.
Nationally, yeah.
And that's where I guess things really start to take off because you get recognized and start to be paired up with some other.
A little bit, yeah. So that's so funny you bring that up. That was a thing called the Energizer Rock and Roll Challenge.
Nice.
Sponsored by Energizer batteries before the Energizer Bunny existed.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you remember this, but before the Energizer Bunny, their ad campaigns featured this very angry Australian, I don't know if he was a professional wrestler.
I do remember this.
His name was Jacko.
Yes.
Remember this
guy?
Yeah. And he would like put the battery like in your face and
Yes.
he'd be like, "Oi!"
Yes.
In one of these, and in one of these. One of these lasts longer than all the rest. To right, the extraordinary Energizer.
New Energizer.
be like, "Oi!"
Yes, I do
We
remember.
would scream like that was the marketing
I'll see
campaign
if I
for
can find it.
Energizer. It's
YouTube has, like,
a
everything.
guy yelling "Oi!"
Yeah.
into the
And someone
camera.
thought that would sell in the United States of America.
Well,
and I'm
hey,
sure, right?
But that was a fast, like the whole experience of doing that Battle of the Bands was really, looking back on it, pretty wild. Mm-hmm. To kind of tie it into the current time, that's the first time I ever actually met David Osikinen from the Hooters.
Yeah.
Who
The drummer of the Hooters, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Who is now my partner in the release of the Long Game. Like
very cool.
His label, ITP Entertainment, is the entity that's putting it out.
Awesome.
And that was a wild experience because he was very, very sympathetic to we came in second.
Sure.
And we were honestly, like, we were crestfallen. we really wanted to win, and we lost to this band from Boston. And David was very, very cool in, like, kind of coming, because he was one of the judges.
Sure.
But David, like, pulled me aside and was like, "Listen, buddy, don't worry about this. It's just a contest. You're gonna," and that really meant something to me.
Sure.
You know, and to
Because they were huge, like especially from the region of you were in. I mean, they're a Philly band, like.
Well, when you talk about, like, a young band from where we grew up,
Right.
with any ambition, and they are the band from the area that
Right.
you're from that's actually doing stuff.
Right.
And so, yeah, they were a huge inspiration, influence, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know, to be kind of, like, friends with the guy, like, all these years later,
Right.
is very cool.
That is super cool. Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing.
But that's a lot of talk about this Battle of the Bands from 1986.
No, but I think it kind of sets you on fire to start that love affair with.
I mean, things did pick up a little bit after that. I mean, we're still 6 years from the Caulfields even forming.
Got it.
But it was a significant step for the Beat Clinic to break into Philadelphia, play
Sure.
venues that existed back then that were a big deal, like the Chestnut Cabaret and Empire Rock Club and stuff like that. So.
That's amazing. Well, why don't we bring in some Caulfields music, and then you can kind of talk to us about how it transitioned, because I think it's a lot of the same band members, right? Like from the Beat Clinic to this, or no?
Yeah.
So let's bring in, and again, this is where I'm hoping some people have the same kind of memory blast that I did. But here's Devil's Diary, which is, I guess, like the gateway song of the Caulfields.
I mean, it was our most well-known song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, check it out and have a nice trip down memory lane. And if it's the first time you're hearing it, then you're going to love it. And I'm almost jealous of you.
Hearing hell's hammer, just thinking of deviltry. Planet wide panics, a hat that's so old. I'd rather write about her in my diary. Could she be mine without selling her soul? Dirty deeds from a demon seed don't excite me anymore. Is there one girl, just one girl who says I'm bigger than Jesus now? And I love her. Bigger than Jesus now. Up above her, I'm stage diving. Up the church of the holier than thou. Oh, I'm bigger than Jesus now.
So I'm sure a lot of people going like, oh, I remember that song. But yeah, you were talking before about the video that gets a little bit, throwback to this time frame. This is that actual time frame.
This is the time frame.
Yeah.
And when I watch this, it just, like, the ridiculousness of it just makes me laugh.
Yeah.
You know, because this is an $80,000, $90,000 project. It was actually directed by this guy, Dave Dobkin, who directed Wedding Crashers. I don't know if you remember that movie.
I do, but I did not make that
So
connection.
he was sort of in the music video making world before all that.
Got it.
And the thing that's really funny and quasi-infuriating is that in the beginning of this, or somewhere in the video, there's a thing where it says world's largest ball of twine or something like that. And we were at the offices in A&M at a certain point.
And that's who signed you?
Yes.
Yes.
And we happened to see on somebody's desk like other video treatments that David Dobkin had sent in for other bands. And it was like, you know, here's the treatment for Hook by Blues Traveler.
Sure.
And when you open up, there's a page. It's like, then the world's largest ball of twine. I'm like, this motherfucker is just like, he has the world's largest ball of twine. He's just dying to put it in some
Just everywhere.
unsuspecting band's music.
Or it's like, you know, just some sort of like a trigger that he can't let go
we
of.
were the ones that bit, so we got to have it. But it was just, you know.
So it could be infuriating. It could be brilliant.
I mean,
Who else can say that?
whoever
They have
will let the viewer decide.
it? Yeah, there you go. Put it in the comments.
Right.
But yeah, so let's talk about that. So you get approached to be signed by A&M.
Well, we didn't get approached. We had an in.
Okay.
Because what a lot of people find interesting about the Caulfields, and what I find interesting, is that the way we got our record contract is probably 180 degrees different from the way most bands got signed back then. We were not the talk of the town. You know, we were not selling out anywhere. We were not going up to New York and playing for, you know, and igniting a bidding war.
Right.
We just happened to. So there was a sequence of events, and you were alluding to, you know, taking steps in the career. Once we got into Philly, we hooked up with the guy that would eventually become our manager, who was at the time managing a guy named Matt Sabir. Matt was actually a Delaware guy that had made the transition to Philadelphia and was doing great. Like, he was actually probably the first Philly artist that WXPN really like went to the wall for.
Interesting.
I mean, he had a song on there that was like heavy rotation.
Got it.
No one else was doing that at the time. We got a few shows opening for him. His manager took a liking to what we were doing, and before we knew it, he was our manager too. And he recommended that I give my demo tape to a guy that had produced Matt's record.
Got it.
Who actually was a Delaware guy that I knew of and kind of knew peripherally because I knew who his brother was.
Got it.
Now, his brother eventually
Lit the theater on fire. I'm just kidding.
Exactly. And when I threatened to turn his ass in, that's what got the wheels rolling.
What, by any means possible.
Right, exactly.
That's not true. I
Right.
made that up.
Just holding that over his head to this day. His brother is Richie Rubini, who is the drummer in the Caulfields, but wasn't at the time.
Got it.
So anyway, Richie's brother Rudy took our tape to Mark Mazzetti at A&M, who just so happened to also be a Delawarean.
Oh,
Grew up across the street from them.
wow.
And so we had a natural line of communication
Sure.
with a guy from A&M. Now, that's not a guarantee of anything.
No.
It's just like
Music still has to be good.
he'll take a phone call.
Right, right.
You know, when I wrote Devil's Diary, it was kind of a joke.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, this is going to be the one.
Right.
You know, I thought it was funny.
Right.
I happen to be a fairly irreverent person when it comes to God and
yeah.
religion and stuff.
There seemed to be a tone of that at that time, too, that it was like selling for that little bit
but
of...
I mean, that had nothing
Yeah.
That was not in my mind.
No, I meant more like why they might have been
Maybe
interested in it, saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, this."
I mean,
could,
well,
yeah.
anything that's like in somebody's mind, like a little edgy, whatever. I just thought it was funny. But Devil's Diary happened to be the first song on this homemade 4-track demo thing that I gave to Rudy. And you read the book. There's a part in the book where he calls me on the phone and he's screaming the chorus of the song so loudly I had to do one of these where I pulled the receiver back from my ear. But
Like in the cartoons.
Like in the cartoons, yeah. So when the guy from A&M heard the demo, he immediately was like, I want to see this band. He was flying home for the holidays from LA. It was like the perfect opportunity. He was like, when's your next gig? What do you have? Well, funny thing, we had no gigs.
But you need one.
But we needed one.
Right.
So we actually booked a rehearsal studio.
Got it.
And basically played our 6 best songs.
To an audience of 1?
To an audience of 3.
Okay.
Mark Mazzetti from A&M, our manager, Duran Siegel, and Rudy Rubini. Just standing, like, literally, like, 30 feet from us against a wall while we're just, like...
It has to be real, because if it was...
And that's all it took.
Wow.
You know, we played the 6 songs, and he was like, okay, I'm going to sign you.
Wow.
Now...
That's like the coolest audition ever. Like
it's cool, but as you know from reading the book, Rudy passed away shortly after that, and it was like a whole, like we didn't know what was happening to us. You know, it was and the story of how he was responsible for getting us in front of this record label, and then how he passed away. Like that's kind of like the essence of when I say the yin and the yang of it all.
Right.
Like that is in a nutshell the prime example of that.
Sure.
You know, and really after Rudy died, that's when like the resolve to sign us in Mark's mind became even stronger. He was like, this is a tribute to Rudy.
Sure,
I have to see this through.
Got it.
You guys have to make a great record. It's got to happen.
Right.
So it took on like a much different kind of vibe than the typical excitement of a band getting a record contract.
Right.
Like it almost felt like a responsibility or a weight that had, or an obligation that had to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
You know, so
that's a lot of pressure.
That's
on.
when the adventure with
Yeah.
A&M began. The truth of the matter is that if all the events that led to meeting Rudy, getting our tape to A&M and all, if none of that had happened, the Caulfields would have been broken up the same year. Because we weren't going anywhere.
Right.
I mean, we were doing okay.
Right.
But, you know, like, we were 10 years, all of us were 10 years in to, like, going for it. Like, from the minute we were freshmen in college, it's when that's the line in my mind, like, okay, I deliberately went to this university to keep my band together. This is me taking it seriously. And you're trying, you're doing the things you think you need to do, and you're putting out records. And you know, Beat Clinic had 2 albums out. Caulfields had no releases.
Right.
We put out like a cassette, and so there definitely simultaneous to all this was a feeling of spinning our wheels and wondering, you know, like, okay, we're pushing our late 20s. I mean, some of the guys were like almost 30. That job at the bank is looking pretty secure right now, you know?
Right, yeah.
So there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
For sure.
Interesting. And then there was this funny story I heard you tell about, I guess it's the second album. Like, obviously, this is the time when record labels had money and advances and stuff, so there's like, you know, you're going to California to go to a certain recording studio and such, and
it seems absurd now, doesn't it?
It kind of does, especially, again, when we talked about how Philly just is this great music town and has great recording studios.
I mean, we knew what Studio 4 was then.
Right.
So the funny thing is, the same A&R guy signed Dishwalla.
Yeah. Which was huge at
year.
that same time, yeah.
He took, and they were from Santa Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
He took the band from Santa Barbara, flew them to Philadelphia to record at Studio 4 with Phil Nicolo, signed a band from Delaware, flew them to Sausalito to record with Sinead O'Connor's producer in the studio that Sly Stone built, basically.
Right.
It's almost like it's designed to waste money.
Sure.
But is it a waste? I mean, it's an experience that I wouldn't trade for anything.
No.
But it was expensive as hell.
Sure.
To do it.
And was that the one where the producer was on a boat, like a houseboat?
Yeah. Maloney had a house. Well, I mean, in his defense, the water was right there.
Yeah, right.
We were in Sausalito,
right.
So it was 100 paces from the
Sure.
studio. But yes, to your point,
Well, the excess
living on a
was there.
houseboat while producing the record.
But that is pretty great. Yeah, and then there was another track on, and also that the Caulfields had that had a lot of kind of play was Hannah, I Locked You Out. That was in movies,
It was in
TV.
It was in two things of note. The Babysitters Club,
Nice.
which was Columbia Pictures,
Yeah.
big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very funny. My bandmate Brett Talley, who currently plays on Caulfields, and he was also in Ike. He's in a new relationship, and we were just on the phone catching up over the weekend, and he was like, "Yeah, and you're not gonna believe this, but like she's a big Babysitters Club fan. She has the soundtrack." I'm like,
it's meant to be.
yeah. So yeah, good on him.
Yes.
Yeah, he's found the one. So
That's amazing.
but yeah, it was in the Babysitters Club, and it was also in an episode of Melrose Place.
Yeah, okay. Well, it was huge at the time.
It was a big deal. You know, I mean, it was.
If you go back and actually, like, Melrose Place would have soundtracks, and then, what was it, the OC had soundtracks? There was such
Right.
great music on that
Well, you know what's
style of
what's a really
show. So again, back to, like, music that just pleases my eardrums. The Caulfields are such a wonderful sound for that. Not that anything else isn't. It's just there's something different about that. I mean, you would probably know better than I. Like, it just really. I guess it's also the time frame of who I was at that point in my life.
I find that that's always the case in how anybody interprets music or the sound of a band.
Right.
It's when are you exposed to it,
Right.
and what are you experiencing while that's happening? It's all context, always.
Yes. Right.
And one thing that's been very fun for me and the rest of the Caulfields as all this time has passed is to really get the feeling that, yeah, this was not a platinum record, but for those who bought it and enjoyed it, it's an integral record in their lives. And that means everything to me.
That's
and I
so
know it
cool.
means a lot to my bandmates
Yeah.
because, we've been in touch with people we met on the road 30 years ago. They're
Yeah.
still our friends.
Yeah.
They still care about what we're up to.
Sure.
And whenever something, nowadays, like every year, it's an anniversary of something.
Right.
And this year is Whirligigs, our first album's 30th anniversary.
Right.
And I think I made like a Facebook post on the actual day that it got released, and it got so many
That's so cool.
reactions of, I still listen to it
Yeah.
to this day.
Yeah.
It's still a top 10 record for me. Like, to have anybody say that
Right.
about anything you ever do is an incredible feeling.
Yeah.
And
It's like you talked about earlier. As a creative, you're creating art that is now proven to be timeless. Like it has.
I mean, for those people that
Right.
has stood the test of time.
Right.
Yeah.
That it's still art they care about, that they want to have move them.
And that I can't think of any better reason to do it.
Yeah. Right. That is so cool. Well, congrats on that. That's
thanks.
fantastic.
It's a cool feeling.
Yeah.
But we're going to do one show. We actually just booked it. We haven't announced it yet.
Oh,
It'll
neat.
be in Delaware and in like November. So
Very cool.
And not at a very big place either. We just want to
Stay tuned.
It's more
follow John Faye to find out when that's happening.
It's more important to us that it's just fun.
Yes.
You know, and
Yeah, you're doing it for the love
we
of
don't
it,
want the
not for
stress.
the- right.
We don't want the stress of anything.
Right,
You
right,
know,
right.
I mean, I can stress over what I'm doing with the long game because that's a current album. But
Sure.
like for something like a 30-year-old record,
Just wanna have
the
fun with
band is lucky to be alive at this point. Let's just have a nice stress-free show.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
That's how we want to do it.
So, obviously, there's way more to be talked about. Lots of touring, a lot of great artists you've performed with, and so on. But in moving the kind of the narrative story along, what happens is the second album comes out, and then the person who was your contact at A&M
Yeah, Mazzetti got fired.
and then you lose your kind of support or
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a unspoken thing in the music business that if your A&R guy gets fired, it's sort of the kiss of death for you
Sure.
at that label, unless you were already a superstar,
Right.
which we were not. You know, we didn't, and the thing about it is that we didn't technically get dropped, but the support, it was almost like
Right.
immediate austerity.
Which would be a good album name.
Like
by the
you're
way.
still signed, but
Immediate
like
austerity.
you can go on this tour if you want to, but you don't get any money at all.
Wow.
And
No one would do that.
but we do have like one box of posters for you. Hang these up in the
Thank
club.
you so much.
You know, I mean, I was literally, and I will add very naively, I was going around to like every Best Buy within 75 miles of my house and buying every copy of L just to like see if the sound scan numbers would ignite something.
Sure.
Which it did not. But I had a lot of copies of the record to sell at shows at a loss.
Right. 'Cause, yeah.
But you know, we tried.
Right.
Like we actually spent our own money to tour for probably 6 months behind the record. And on the surface, the shows were good. They were going well, but like that's not enough.
Right.
You need, I mean, at that level, you need the machine.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the machine, then you're just some band that had a hit 2 years ago that's, you know, playing the food fest in Minnesota that summer, you know, and the Village People are playing like 3 bands after you,
Ooh,
and
yeah.
that's, you know what I mean? Like that's, it was demoralizing after a point.
Yeah.
And then something very dramatic happened within the personnel of the band that sort of prompted us to just sort of throw in a towel.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's again where like I was talking about the long game. Like you can see where this was just this. You had such promise. You had such vision of where you think it could go to, and out of no fault of your own,
Yeah.
it gets pulled out from underneath you.
Yeah, I mean, we all thought that our second record was better than the first.
Sure.
It was sort of universally thought at the label from the people that were our supporters at the label. It's just, when you get ensnared in a political situation at a record company, it's just not going to be...
It's not going to end well.
Not going to end well for you.
No. But yeah, the Figure It Out, which is like the lead track off that album, is awesome. Like I just love that song. We're gonna play it at the end. We'll kind of summarize things at the end for that. But I think that track's
No, I mean,
amazing.
it's still a song that we all love to play.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we feel very strongly that, you know, it's kind of like you're cut off before your time. And I think that's a big part of what drove me personally, is that I was very much in that mindset, like, I'm not really done here,
Right.
and I'm not going to allow this to just kill my music
No,
life,
and that's
you
that,
know?
that love affair with the music.
Yeah.
So it evolves into something called the John Faye Power Trip.
Correct. So, yeah, and that was obviously meant to be a joke. Funnily enough, so that started out as a bassless 3-piece project.
Okay.
It was myself, Dave Anthony on drums, and Cliff Hillis, who you might know from the Philly area. And so we actually were billing ourselves as the John Faye Power Trio, and it got misspelled on a marquee as
Oh my
Power
God.
Trip, and I was like, that's the new name.
That's really amazing.
And so we made a record under that moniker. It was the three of us, and I still had a really great network of people in the radio side of things throughout the country. And one of the stations that was hugely supportive of the Caulfields was this station called 99X in Atlanta. And they, one of the DJs there, this guy Steve Barnes, he was like, what can I do to help you pick up the pieces?
Sure.
And he knew of a manager in Atlanta who was very interested in meeting me. Lanny began managing me, and we made this record in Georgia. I almost became more of like a Georgia-based act. Not that I sounded anything like bands coming out of Georgia at the time, but
Neither did
all
R.E.M.
all my business dealings were down there. Like I was really not. The only thing that made me Philadelphian is that I was playing every Sunday night in the corner of the front bar at the North Star Bar to like tweak these new songs I was writing.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, that was the turning point of, or the picking up of the pieces after the Caulfields.
Yep.
And we made a record that actually, maybe surprisingly, not surprisingly, did way better than L did. Because we actually, we had like an indie deal for it, and had like a little radio hit with this song Miss Catch 22.
Yes.
That 99X played, and actually it got picked up on Y100 in Philadelphia. I don't know if you're not really from Philly, but Y100 was like the,
when we moved here,
the
it was,
alternative radio station in Philly at the time. And they had this thing called the Cage Match.
Oh, fun.
Which, well, I guess fun.
I mean, not fun.
What it is they would play two songs, and then the callers would call in and vote for the one that they wanted to win the Cage Match.
Right.
And so they were like, we can't just add your record outright, because, that just wasn't how it was done. Like, they didn't really have the power to add, like, indie records into rotation, but, like, if you win the Cage Match, you're getting played every night.
Right.
So we're like, okay, put it in the Cage Match. So, like, the first night, we were up against Guster.
Oh, right.
And I was like, I really like Guster. I don't think that we're going to win. And miraculously, it wins.
Nice.
And then it kind of keeps winning. So it wins for like a record number of nights, like 13 nights in a row. And then on the 14th night, it's the competition is Nookie by Limp Bizkit, and we get crushed.
Yeah.
So, but it did well enough, and again, like, going back to, there were steps that happened. As a result of that happening, we got a slot in a battle of the bands that the station was putting on.
Not the Energizer one.
Not the Energizer one. This is years later. I'm now like 33 years old, playing in another battle of the bands. Like, that was a big, like I can't believe I'm
battling as a band.
Jesus Christ.
Right.
But the prize, if you won this contest, was you got to open for R.E.M.
Wow.
And we won the contest.
Amazing.
We opened for R.E.M. in Camden at the, the Shed.
Yeah, changed its name like 17 times.
Whatever bank it is, the Week Center. And then the album, the John Faye Power Trip, came out that week. And so that's a huge way to launch a record. So that, everything leads to the next thing. That led to us getting on the Matthew Sweet tour.
Yep, that's
for In Reverse. Which was a huge opportunity. That's like a nationwide tour. You're going all over the country. And again, like, those opportunities are so important in the story of any musician's journey is like when you get those breaks
Yep.
and you get to play in those situations, because those are the audiences that are looking for something new and
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
And they feel like they've discovered you.
Totally.
And so
There's a different type of connection there. Yeah.
It's a totally different connection.
And does that evolve into Ike? Like, is that
Yes,
because
so-
that band
so-
doesn't stop? It
So
just
that band,
becomes.
we went in to make another record as John Faye Power Trip, and our producer Don McAllister, who had done the previous album, basically in the middle of recording the record was like, I've been thinking about this. You guys should name this a band, because you've become a band.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but what are we going to call it? Like, I don't know. Do you play?
I do not.
Okay. One thing that I always joke with other musicians is, it's so hard to find a good name for your band.
Right.
There are so many awful names
Right.
that exist, and I know people that keep like a running like note in
Yeah.
their
Oh, yeah.
phone of like all these different band names that are like, well, that would be good for anybody but me. But I do like that. So my ex-wife was a big fan of South Park. There was a baby named Ike.
Right.
She's like, why don't you call it Ike? That'd be fun. I was like, all right, 3 letters.
Right.
Hard to misspell.
Yep.
So that's how that kind of came about.
Yeah. Well, let's bring on some of that music.
Sure. What song are you playing?
We are going to be playing We Like Sugar. I love this track here. And again, it's going to be one of those ones where the sound is just going to ring your 1990s, early 2000s eardrums. So here's We Like Sugar by Ike.
Trying to pull the sweet tooth. They think we're rotten, they never really wanted the truth. The highs are high, the lows are oh so low. We like sugar and we're not letting it go.
Again, the super clever video.
I'm telling you.
But yeah, the guitars here, not that far off from like a helmet type sound.
It was so funny. Like, one of the things that happened when, Ike went through a few different iterations of lineup and what have you, and it was very clear that when Brett Talley started playing guitar, that he was much more open to like my more rockist tendencies.
Sure.
Cliff Hill is an amazing musician. He's one of the greatest guitar players I have ever known and will ever work with. But there are certain things that he didn't feel as comfortable doing.
Sure.
And its guitar sounds like this.
Right.
Drop D tuning.
Yep, right.
Kind of thing. So this kind of like was a new era of Ike, and it really worked for me because I think my personal influences at that time were more in line with like heavier modern rock stuff. But I definitely remember, like, when this record came out, some old friends of mine were like, what's with the Korn guitar tones? I'm like, get over it, man.
Right. It rocks.
No.
That's all that matters.
But the funny thing is like, you listen to this now and it just sounds like a normal rock song.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
it doesn't sound
out of place.
out of place.
Right. No, not at all.
I think at the time, like for us and what our previous sort of sonic landscape was, this was definitely a departure. But you know, I mean, both myself and the bass player in Ike, Joanne Schmidt, we were both working at a guitar shop where they had a music school. I'm actually wearing their hoodie, the Blue Bone Music School. Both of these kids in this video were our students.
That's fun.
And actually, they're both like 33 years old now. And married. One of them has kids.
Amazing.
It's nuts.
So, and once again, that's May
17th.
Yeah. Milkboy in Philly.
Asian American Pie 2.
Yes, and we'll link to all of that in the show notes and promote it as it comes up. It's a great, great show, so people need to check it out. And a unique opportunity to see a reunion of Ike.
Yeah, that's going to be the only time that happens. You know?
And then, I guess, in tandem with Ike, you also start John and Brittany?
Yeah, so there is crossover time-wise there. So around 2009, I started writing songs with Brittany Rotundo, and I guess 2011 was our first EP, which Brett produced.
Okay.
So there was, you know, it was all kind of simpatico, you know, like everything was coexisting. But, you know, things were kind of, the trajectories were kind of like going in opposite directions. Ike had been around since 2003. You know, our last full studio project was 2011.
Got it.
So, you know, both of those records kind of came out the same year, but one was sort of signaling the beginning of something, and the other one was kind of like the downward turn of something. And, you know, John and Brittany like really kind of took off.
Yeah.
In Philly. I was hosting the open mic at Dobbs every Wednesday, and Brittany was kind of like the catalyst of our little scene, just like getting everybody to show up and play, and then we would do like a little spotlight set in the middle of the night.
Oh, that's cool.
Before we knew it, we were doing really well.
Yeah.
And then when we put our full-length record out in 2012 into 2013, that's when things really got cooking with that, because that album got some serious airplay at Little Steven's Underground Garage.
Right.
And, you know, you get this thing called the coolest song in the world designation, which is a huge thing. Then we did a music video for one of the other songs on that record, and that got played on MTV U, which was like the university arm of MTV.
Right.
Just for the college kids.
Right.
You know, so like I said, all of these things kind of just add up to one more tank of gas to keep the van going through life. You know what I mean?
Metaphorically and literally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and then that does morph also into this solo stuff where you're kind of responsible for
so like
everything.
John and Brittany was a band that I will say burned bright and quickly, and ended just as quickly. So 2014. So we did have like 4 releases in the span of like 4 years.
Right.
You know, I mean, we did a lot. Our last EP came out in 2014, and then right after that, I launched into this sort of like cocoon. Like when John and Brittany, like Ike never broke up technically.
Right.
John and Brittany definitely broke up.
Right.
And so I was like, I'll show everybody. I'll make my own solo record, and I'll play everything on it, and I'll prove that I don't need anybody.
And that's where Meddling Kids comes from.
Meddling Kid was a record that I put out in 2015 that I played everything on.
Right.
Which was a really exciting experience.
Sure.
And not only just because it proved I could do it, but I really liked the songs on it. And we as John Faye and those meddling kids, we got
Right.
opportunities.
Sure.
We did a big 104.5 radio show in Philly where we opened for like the War on Drugs and
Oh, wow, yeah.
Nate Roos from Fun. You remember that
Yep.
band?
Yeah.
That was a huge opportunity. Out at Festival Pier, which no longer exists. So many places in Philly no longer exist.
I know. It's a lot of RIP out there.
But yeah, and then ever since then, like shortly after that, I took time to write my book, which was like a 5-6 year chunk.
Yes.
So that was like, there was very little music going on during that period of time.
And I think this is a sweet element to it that I wanted you to touch on too, is that your father passed away when you were 6.
Yep.
And then your mother passed away
2012.
in 2012. And when you read her, like, the pamphlet at the funeral, you were, like, surprised at how it didn't capture who she was.
I don't think anybody's funeral card
No,
captures who
certainly
they are.
not. But I think that was, like, so then you carry that with you for, like, 10 years
Yeah.
in an effort to say, I'm going to write this wrong.
Yeah.
By writing your book, which is still also, like, in honor of her
In a lot
and
of
telling
ways
her
it is.
story.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that it just kind of hit me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the little booklet at her celebration of life thing was
Right.
very well intended.
Sure.
It was beautiful, but it was also like,
Paled in comparison to who
there's
she
so
was.
much more
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
And I don't even consider like what I wrote in the book to. I mean, it's just scratching the surface
Sure.
also, but
Right.
it's still like putting her story into a form that's out there in the world, which I really very much wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And so we want to make sure that people know about, obviously, all the music that we just talked about, the yin and the yang of it all.
Yes.
Which even has a longer title. I tried to
there's
remember.
a subtitle you don't have to worry about.
Okay. I got
You know.
Thanks for letting me off the hook. But the audiobook is wonderful.
Thank you.
Read by you, and then it has some of those other audio elements to it that I think enhance the experience.
Yes, there's extra immersion, as we like to call it.
There you
and,
go.
Joey
In the biz.
DiTullio and I worked really hard on
Yeah.
that, and very proud of the audiobook.
And then also the podcast, which is called Talking at the Diner, which
Yes.
is, we kind of hinted at in the
So
top.
you are completely like doing my thing here.
I just wanted you to feel at home.
Right, yeah.
Except that you were answering the questions.
I'm answering the
instead. Yeah.
questions and eating on camera, which is one of the reasons why my thing is not a video.
A video,
podcast.
right. Which I did think of that afterwards.
People are like,
I was like,
you
maybe
know,
we... spitting things everywhere.
the podcast has been super fun.
It is, and it's all... Like, is it all Philly, or is it just budding musician?
It's all working musicians.
Working
I mean,
musicians, that's right,
I give room for I say musicians and creatives.
Sure.
But primarily it's all Philly
Yeah.
based musicians and some not Philly based. I mean, I've actually all of the people that have been on it I know from either Philly or Delaware or
Yep.
New Jersey or
Right.
the basic Mid-Atlantic area. But it's been cool. I've been able to do a couple episodes. I did one in Hawaii.
Fun.
With my friend Jeremy Sabo, who used to live in New Jersey and moved to Maui.
Right.
And I was visiting my sister in Hawaii. And I was like, we should totally do the podcast in Hawaii.
We need to find a diner.
Yeah. And it was really cool.
Yeah.
And I did one in California with my friend Derek Furman, who lives in Burbank. So we did it at the original Bob's Big Boy.
Oh, wow.
Which is super exciting.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a wonderful podcast. I think
Thanks.
different than this one, where we try to do a narrative of like the chronological story. Yours is it touches on a lot of that, but it's more just a wonderful dialogue between two people who know what they're talking about.
Thank you.
That's what I love
It-
about it. It's
it-
like you're the picture on the wall, listening to these two
It's
brilliant
very-
musicians
it's
talk to each other.
very meant to be like audio verite, fly on the wall,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. Like you're dropped in the middle of something.
Yeah, you're the salt shaker
Like there's
or
no
something like that.
there's
yeah.
no welcome to this. Thanks for doing this.
Right.
It's all just we're just talking.
Yeah.
And anything introductory or a closing statement like I do in the remarks before.
Right. Yeah, that it's bookended in post production.
Yeah.
But I just love the dialogue that you always get to, these like really like super cool conversations that are like parallel to music. Like it could be about inspiration. It could be about, again, childhood dreams that made it or didn't make it. Or whatever.
My goal is to really, like, I know after many years of contemplation and searching and experience, like, know what motivates me. But I want to find out what that is,
what makes that
for everybody
tick.
else that I talk to.
Yeah.
So, like, I almost tend to shy away. I mean, obviously, like, a lot of times, like, the impetus for me talking to somebody is like they've got a project happening or they have something in the offing. But I really try to de-emphasize that stuff. I mean, I'll talk about it in my thing, but like I don't want the whole thing to just be like, well, what's going on? You know, right. So I do enjoy that aspect of it, and a lot of these musicians are great conversationalists.
Yes, that's the thing I've found is the storytelling aspect of it isn't just in song; it's also just in conversation.
I mean, I'm trying to like put the working musician in the light of like these are fully formed humans.
Yes,
they're not just your monkeys up there.
Right. Yeah, just pulling strings.
Right.
And,
some of the things that I've gotten into with some people have just been like, wow.
Yes. Yeah, there have been some very, very cool just moments of like, that's so cool that got captured. And I think that person will be thankful for it 20 years from now, that it got put down on tape.
Well, I tell everybody, like, you know, I'm very selfish with my motivation for this. It's like, I just want to have like a collection of great conversations that I had with my friends.
Yeah.
So that when I'm on my deathbed, I can just hit play.
So it's funny. There's an element to my. So I have like two purposes. One is that I want to shine a light on all this amazing music that I think is unfairly treated by the fact that there's just such a algorithm around everything, and people struggle to find new music, so they somewhat just give up and listen to what they've always listened to. But if they had an outlet, a very easy way to go say, just give me new music, they would do it. So that's what I try to do. The other parallel thing to that is, so my father passed away in 2014, and I just had those moments where I was just like, I wish I could just hear him do one more thing, tell one more joke, one more story, or learn a whole other aspect of, I never knew who he was in business. So there's this part of this that I hope my kids don't listen to this, but they might.
They will someday.
And so this is now, I did not expect 150 episodes and counting, but like this is a way for me to leave this there for them to say, whenever you want to come back and listen to this, you know, and so there'll be these funny moments where this will be the moment where they realize this was somewhat for them.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, I think that even like for me, when I think of, well, when I'm dead, who's going to care that I made 16 records? You know, the chances are my kids.
Yeah. Right.
They don't really listen avidly to what I do, but they are aware that it is, I mean, they're both in their 20s now, so they're well aware of how important this has all been in my life.
Of course.
And, you know, I think isn't that what we're all just trying to do, is to, you know, it's the...
Leave a legacy.
It's the, well, it's the brilliant Johnny Resnick once said, I just want you to know who I am, you know?
Well, that is a great place to end. Yes.
Right.
But let's just make sure we promote everything. So we do have Asian American Pie.
Yep, May 17th.
May 17th. Milkboy in Philly. And if you can't make it to that, check into these bands, listen to their music, and again, like we've talked about on this show a lot, buy merch straight from them, sign up for a Patreon, you know, or pursue them performing nearby, buy the tickets in advance. Those are the different ways.
I do have a Patreon that I like to plug. It's
absolutely.
patreon.com/John Kim Faye.
Nice.
And I do a lot of exclusive content on there, a lot of you know, professionally shot like videos from live shows that I only share like 30-second snippets of on social media. You get the full song, You get obviously the early drop of the podcast.
Right,
the podcast lives on Patreon for a while until I decide to make it public.
Right.
So you're supporting a lot.
Yeah. Those are just the different ways that you can really help a musician feel supported, both monetarily, but also, emotionally as well.
So like anytime I like put a new song out, like people on the Patreon get to hear it first.
Yeah.
If I'm working on something, I'm not a big like here's my demo of this kind of guy.
Sure.
But every now and then I'll put something that's maybe a little unusual.
And you just never know. That's like the cool part about it as well. Obviously, the new record, The Long Game, vinyl available for that?
The vinyl is available.
Yep.
We're running low right now. We got to reorder.
Let's get it
fast.
Sold out. We got to move units.
I've only got 3 copies, but we're reordering as of today, actually.
Nice. That is very cool. And then the book again, the yin and the yang of it all.
Yep.
So lots of great stuff from the John Kim Faye Nation.
Yes, there you go.
John, this was an awesome conversation. Thank you so much.
This has been awesome. Thank you again.
Thank you. So there you have a wonderful conversation with John Kim Faye. I mean, just an incredible journey that he's been on, and I was more than happy to go along for that ride. And kind of a renaissance man. So you got obviously all that music to check in of all the different titles. Caulfields, Ike, John Faye Power Trip, which is a hilarious, misname, and he just went with it. There was John and Brittany. There was, and then the more current solo stuff. John Kim Faye, then Meddling Kids, I believe was some of the touring there because that was some of the solo music that first came out. And then the brand new stuff, The Long Game. Then a book, a podcast. There's other stuff out there, so just lots to consume from his amazing talent and artistry. So hope that you enjoyed the conversation and that you'll check out more of his music. Once again, definitely stick around. We're going to play one more. It was my favorite from the Caulfield days, a song called Figure It Out, so you're going to want to check that out.
All right, Phil, let's say goodbye to everybody.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Your Next Favorite Band. We'd like to sincerely thank John Faye for spending time with us and meeting in person. That was something he was so committed to and loved it. Glad we were able to find a centrally located diner for us to check out. And hope he enjoyed eating on camera. We found ways to kind of sneak it in without it being on camera, but it's more about the whole diner theming. We will put links in the show notes to tons of them will be there for all of the different things that we are helping promote of his, the new music, the old music, the book, the podcast, and a bunch of other stuff in between there. Especially, definitely if you get the chance to check out that Asian American Pie show, if you're in that Philadelphia area, to catch that, you're not going to want to miss that. Judah Kim, who was a prior guest on the show, is excellent, and then they always put together a great opportunity there, and it's an important thing to support. As always, our hope here on this show is to bring you your next favorite band. If you tuned in tonight because you already knew John Faye, thank you so much. We hope that you like what you heard and what you saw, that you might give us a like, a subscribe, and a follow so that we can bring you your next favorite band in a coming week. Or perhaps your next favorite band is already out there at nextfaveband.com. All of our prior interviews are there for your listening and viewing pleasure. Both the video and audio versions are there. You can either just go pick one at random, or if you'd like our assistance in finding what the next one is for you that you would want to check out, let us know. We'd love to help out. Hope to see you at a live show soon. And now stay tuned for one more track. From John Faye, here is The Caulfields, Figure It Out.
to make what I couldn't buy. No one knows whether to come or go, so they grow in any direction. Look back through all the years, then ask me how I wound up here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sometimes I figure it out again, then something begins to change my mind. So you got time to follow the storyline off the track, alone in a paperback. Show your hands, 'cause nobody understands. You can't plan the great imperfection. Just give the world a spin and notify the next of kin. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sometimes I figure it out again, then something begins to change my mind. Sometimes I figure it out again. I figure it's always undefined. Figure it out again. Figure it out. No one knows whether to ever flow, so they grow in every direction. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sometimes I figure it out again, then something begins to change my mind. Sometimes I figure it out and then I figure it's always undefined. Yeah, sometimes, 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 sometimes I figure it out again. 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 I figure it out again.